Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Duval Dive. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, to the game of Fans First Sports Network, and I have to tell you, you folks, after we had a great conversation with Jordan DeLugo, you might think that our mailbag questions are done. We're still working on a whole butt ton of great stuff from you guys, so thank you again, once again, and I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to share somebody. It ain't no fun if your homies can't have none, and my personal champion, my friend, Travis D. Holmes. Mailbag time again, baby. We have such a smart crew that give us these questions. I get excited every time. And so this is another time, once again, where I'm excited to answer the questions. And there's one question. Well, there's one commenter, shall we say, a number of questions on this particular slide here that we're looking at. But yeah, let's what we got, Travis? Show me what we got.
Bro, I just was not expecting Snoop Dogg to open us up. So this is dope for me. So I appreciate that. Ain't no fun until your homie gets something. All right, cool.
That's what it is, man. That's what's up.
Shout out to Dylan O'Shea, 1864 on, I believe this was from the YouTube comments.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, nice.
For the mailbag episode earlier this month, and we got the rollover. You guys destroyed us with so many questions.
Destroy!
So many awesome questions that we wanted to make sure we at least circle back and give you guys all the attention that you rightfully deserve. So hey, he said, put these guys in order of most receptions for 2025. Dyami Brown, Parker Washington, and Brenton Strange.
Woo!
That was interesting.
That is interesting.
Okay, most receptions. So we're not just talking, most yards, most touchdowns, most receptions makes it a little bit curious. All right, what do you like?
Tough part. So for me, I'm going to come right out here, and people are going to start thinking I'm a Parker Washington hater, and that's just not the case. I do think of the group he gets the least. Not so much because I think he's bad at his job. Obviously not. But he's going to be wide receiver 4, and he's going to have some catches. I think what'll make it interesting is what Dyami Brown does. I'm fairly certain that while he's going to be the big bang guy down the field for when they forget about him, the defense, obviously, when they're too focused on Travis Hunter, when they're too focused on BTJ, should Travis Hunter miss some time because he does find the limits of his mortal coil with his body is also possible too, which could give Brown some more catches, could give Parker Washington some more catches. Who knows? But today I'm going to take Dyami Brown at the top. I'll hear arguments for Brenton Strange at number 1 because he is the air quotes starter for his position group, but I definitely think he gets more receptions than Parker Washington. Travis, what do you think?
I'm with. Actually, no, I'm not. I want to be with you, but I can't because I truly believe that. Well, Brenton Strange is going to lead this one.
He is going to go all in.
So I don't think I'm going too crazy because I'm also the same one that says, "Hey, remember." The Los Angeles Rams don't really use tight ends so crazy. Like they're normally around that, let's say 60 to 80 reception mark, which is a wide range. But nevertheless, we're talking 60 to 80 receptions when I don't think there's a world unless there's some serious injuries where Parker Washington's in that range. So we can eliminate him from that equation. So then we're really just talking about Brenton Strange versus Dyami Brown. Who gets the most receptions? Now, Dyami Brown is a lot more than a deep ball specialist. Like he's a guy who's also going to be peppered with those screen passes. But Brian Thomas Jr. can also get those screen passes. Travis Hunter can also get those screen passes. So this isn't going to be your 2024 Washington Commanders, where Dyami might be one of those primary recipients of those screens. So even his screen game might be a little bit watered down. So because of that, I'm kind of I feel like I have to go Brenton Strange. Like even if he hits that 50 to 60 reception range, that might be more than Dyami gets because there's so many more mouths to feed in that receiver room. What say you?
No, that's a great point. I said I'd entertain the argument. You make it fantastically. Unless somehow or another Parker Washington comes out here and the Jags find themselves needing a Zay Jones type receiver, which I don't think you will in this offense, by the way, right? That's the only way I think Parker Washington even makes it to second. And again, this is not, I know I was on the Boldest Take show a while back and said that he's going to be one of those that could have a chance to be an unlikely cut. I don't think that happens, but I can't take it off the table completely, especially if somehow Bashal Tootin steps in and takes his job, special teams. But if theoretically Brenton Strange is going to get as many or more snaps, I think there's more chances he'll need check down than he would be, than Brown would be selected and have his number called with Travis Hunter and BTJ on the field, to your point. But I maintain the wild card is Travis Hunter's health.
Oh, of course. Like Travis Hunter's health, Travis Hunter not all of a sudden playing way more snaps on defense, or anyone else in the receiver room for that matter, not being as healthy, whether that be Brian Thomas Jr. or fill in the blank. Like that at that point, maybe there's more snaps because they want to run a bigger set or something along those lines with more blocking scenarios. But for the most part, we're not looking at something like that. Then yes, I'm going to have to say that. Well, yeah, you're going to see a situation where it's more likely than not the chain mover is going to be someone like the tight end versus Dyami Brown. Even though Dyami was, again, in Washington, if you saw the previous episode we had about Dyami Brown after the signing on the Duval Dive YouTube, take a look. We talked about the fact that he was mainly that guy who was going to be a screen, the jailbreak screen, the bubble screens, things of that nature, but also he was the guy who was going to be running a lot of 10 and 15-yard dig routes, and then he's the guy who stretches the field after all of those things. So it's not he's not just the deep ball guy, and he's not just the screen guy. He's all those things, but that doesn't generally lead you to believe that he's going to have this explosive season with those other two guys just sharing the load. I'm just sorry, that's just not realistic. Like that's not how this is probably going to be made.
I feel like if he gets 600 yards, Dyami Brown, I think that's a relatively, that's the bar. I don't think.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be a good season for him. Not great, good. Especially if the other guys are blown up.
I'd go with that as a third guy. I mean, as your third guy, I'd definitely go with that. But I just, in how many receptions? Because that was the whole reason that this question was so difficult, was just, hey, man, who gets the most receptions? Because maybe if this is one of your fantasy football questions. Is Dyami Brown this high ceiling guy, or should I be leaning more towards Brenton Strange? And I'm not the Brenton Strange guy as far as fantasy football is concerned. I think he's going to be important to this team. I've said this a few times in the past. I do believe he's going to be important to this team. I just don't know how much in the fantasy landscape that's going to materialize. So we'll all have to kind of wait and see there. But yeah,
keep him in mind for your PPR leagues, is what Travis is saying.
Yeah, I would think Dyami Brown has that higher ceiling of busting in a week because it's that speed that you can just one long catch, touchdown, we're good to go. Whereas Brenton Strange is probably going to have to be your guy who's going to be that check down and catches the touchdown. Just catches the touchdown as your check down kind of guy who eats in the middle of the field, maybe. So, nevertheless, they're all going to have their options. But to answer Dylan O'Shea's question, I have this thing as Brenton Strange, Dyami Brown, Parker Washington. That's
he did order. He did it. Okay, so let's get back into the second. And now there's 3 questions on this slide for those of you listening to the podcast on one of your podcast catchers. I will say that there is an O-line question here. Folks, y'all bombarded us with O-line questions. I am too happy and too excited for that upcoming O-line episode. So we're going to save that portion for that, Dylan O'Shea. Don't you worry about that. We ain't forgotten you. However, this is one for Travis's wheelhouse. This is why I'm asking you the question, because you have to go first here, in my opinion. Who do you think are the Jags' top 4 safeties? And this is fascinating.
Well, this was a harder question earlier this offseason. It's an easier question today because as long as Darnell Savage is on the roster, then it's going to be Eric Murray, Darnell Savage, Caleb Bransall, and likely that's a hard one. That fourth one. Ooh, I can't even fix my mouth to say it. I can't even fix my mouth to say it because that Antonio Johnson, Dewey Wingard, Rayon Lane conversation is, Daniel Thomas is a rough one because nevertheless, some of those guys are going to make the roster not because they play safety, but because they're just great, four core special teamers. Daniel
Rayon
Thomas,
Hall,
we're
for
looking
example.
at you.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel Thomas, looking at you. Dewey Wingard, looking at you. Rayon Lane, looking at you. All these guys are core four special teamers, which kind of automatically puts Antonio Johnson out of that conversation.
I don't think we're shocking anybody, right? He's been disappointing you and a lot of analysts for the past 2 seasons, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought he had a good chance if they're going to go back to that more of that Vic Fangio look, that they're going to be a lot more zone coverage. And I thought he might have a solid chance to kind of link up. And it's not like Antonio Johnson doesn't play special teams. I just didn't consider him one of those top guys like Daniel Thomas, like Dewey Wingard, etc.
Right.
So with that being said, if you're talking about your top 4 guys, I'm looking at Darnell Savage. I'm looking at Eric Murray. I'm looking at Caleb Bransall. And then that 4th guy, if we're talking specifically coverage, I'm probably going to go Dewey Wingard. And I know that's going to piss some folks off. But I thought Dewey is always going to be in the right spot at the right time. Dewey is that dude. Dewey is that old dude who, I don't know. He went to jail for something stupid, and when he was young, he was like, I ain't never going back. I'll be on time at work. I'm going to be in my right spot. And that is Dewey playing safety. He is never going to get beat. The coverage will never be busted. He will be in the right spot at all times. He may not be the most athletic guy, but he ain't going to bust that coverage. And there is something to be said there. So that's probably where I'm going. Eric Murray, Darnell Savage, Caleb Bransall, and Dewey Wingard. And then you have the other guys kind of fighting out the spot for that 5th roster spot, as far as their play on special teams. But I always said I didn't know if Darnell Savage was going to be on this roster by week 1, just because I didn't think the scheme is necessarily going to fit his play style. And if that materializes, this answer changes significantly. Better.
Yeah, you and I both are wildly surprised, I think, that he's still even on the roster at this juncture. So that's fascinating. But frankly, I think that's also sort of a win for the Jags, especially considering how young their DB core is. Having veteran safeties is important. And granted, I think the kid out of Tulane is the exception. Yeah. But let me pose this question, and it's not that I think this is what's happening, but I do remember Jarvis Landry being in the building briefly last year, only to not be later because reasons. We can nitpick over that.
Oh well, Jarvis Landry, he was just invited to rookie minicamp. They just never signed him. That was a little bit different. But I get your general point.
Right.
Maybe like a Travis Gibson or
maybe even going back far enough, was it Laquan Treadwell or Tavon Austin even that were on this roster briefly, only to part later, right? I say all that to say, is there a possibility that Eric Murray is something like that, where he's on we're sitting here at this point, but then would depart? I don't think so, but to be honest, I'm just trying to ask this question so it doesn't sound like I'm just agreeing with you across the board because you're a DB and I'm not.
Yeah, I don't see a world where Gibson's not a starting
Murray.
Murray. I'm saying Gibson. So I'm looking at Tyshawn Gibson Sr., who I was referencing earlier when I said Travis Gibson, but just same old. I just realized I've made that mistake. But when we're talking about Murray, I don't see a world where Murray's not on the roster, and not one of your starting safeties. I truly think if Darnell Savage is not on the roster, yeah, that's your starting safety. Caleb Bransall, Eric Murray. That's it. Those are your guys. And we'll figure the rest out later as far as your depth is concerned. But overall, yeah, I don't see I think that's pretty much your top 2 guys, and then we're having a much different conversation as far as who's the backup, whether or not you're looking at Rayon Lane or whether you're looking at Dewey Wingard or Daniel Thomas. Because while Dewey was a favorite of the previous coaching staff, who knows how they feel about these guys right now?
That's a good point.
That can significantly change, and they could love him. I have no freaking idea. That's going to be interesting, though.
It's hard to dislike Dewey Wingard. We'll put it that way. Do you?
Yeah,
And I can't help but weigh this possibility too, that they take a guy who might be a more of a veteran and has some value, but maybe they try to make him into value in order to develop younger dudes, like Lane, like Ray Shaw.
But they've established that they're going to lean into the young guys. So you almost kind of have to look at this as opposite as you would look at it at any other team. Where most NFL teams that you're looking at, they're going to be like, oh yeah, he's a veteran presence back there. We're going to lean into that. And in this way, it's like it's almost viewed as a negative. And I'm not saying that.
So
that's what they think. I'm saying this is what I believe.
So maybe you take with that in mind, maybe Daniel Thomas becomes a trade asset where they try to get something out of it too.
Yeah, but then what are you really getting out of a core for a special teamer?
I don't know.
A late day 3 pick. Like that's I know. I'm just being real about what it is. Mm-hmm. At that point, I'm not trying to over exaggerate or overvalue what that position would be at this point. Like, come on, man. We know. That would almost be may as well keep him on the roster at that point and just kind of figure out what it's going to be.
They took the time to move Roy Robinson Harris. That's kind of where that is coming from in my head.
The previous administration, the current administration has the current administration has a motto of F them pigs. So it feels like, hey, if you're one of those younger guys, Rayon Lane, Caleb Branshaw, obviously, then maybe you might have a slight advantage just over being young, and they're just going to give you those additional snaps. So that's kind of how I view that, which means that a little bit higher of a mountain, a little bit taller of a mountain for those guys like Antonio Johnson, like Dewey Wingard, like Daniel Thomas to kind of have to climb because this staff is high on the guys they brought in. More importantly, they're high on those young guys they can kind of grow within their system. So good luck. We'll see.
Well, speaking of things that are climbed, we're still finally climbing just a little bit higher on this mountain of mailbag questions here. That'll do it for this edition of it. Guys, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much once again. Of course, Travis D. Holmes. Tell the world where you can be found.
All the socials, Travis D. Holmes. Hey, bigcatcountry.com. That's the main place you can find me. If I'm not talking football or talking some random memes on X or Blue Sky, then it's absolutely in the comment section at bigcatcountry.com where we're arguing about everything Jacksonville Jaguars related, whether it's the OTAs, whether it's what we're seeing out on the field, how do they have a fumble if they're not playing, if they're not, contacting each other, just asking random questions of the fans, things that you guys want to hear. So yeah, lock it in, bigcatcountry.com, save it as your favorites, man. And we're all going to have you guys covered with all the firsthand observations and news. But yeah, where can you be found, sir?
Like, ain't nobody ever made a mistake at practice before. Anyways, of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network on your Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as the Orlando Magic, and my work covering the UCF Knights with the Black and Gold Banneret and Night Shift podcast. Make sure you check out that YouTube channel as well on Night Shift there. So, for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Kyle Nash, student of the game. And until next time, everyone, class. Okay, hold on. I'm going to find the button. This is going to work. All right. Class dismissed.